the material. Yeah. It also, was kind of surprising to me that she was even able to do this. When I first heard that she was going to be able to publish it, I was surprised because for a long time, Flannery O'Connor's estate had been very tight about, releasing anything or letting anybody work with it. And so when she got the rights, I thought, oh, that's amazing. I want to see what she's going to do with it. But she had so many restrictions, I think, placed on her that she wasn't allowed to add anything really much to it. She couldn't substantially change anything that O'Connor wrote. And it's so incomplete, there's no way she could have turned it into a novel. The closest she comes to it in the book is suggesting another ending for it, or another portion where she highlights what she calls Walter's conversion experience, because she felt that O'Connor had not really done much with it. She had just, it's almost like it happens without happening. He just comes to a realization. He suddenly realized that, he was a Christian, and there was no lead up to it. So I think what she did was make an interesting and kind of O'Connor-esque version of that. I really liked it that, she had the things you would expect from O'Connor, where they implanted, in the dirt and getting an accidental black face so in the mud, so that she could kind of identify more with the Black characters, impress the cross. And so it would have worked. Flannery O'Connor probably would have been intrigued by that. But I thought I would talk about some of the things that I think that she was trying to do with this, and maybe some of the reasons that it was so difficult for her to work with. I think for one thing, her short story is the more natural form for her, genre for her. It was more difficult for her to sustain a longer work, but yet she felt that was something that she needed to do as a full-time writer, is to produce novels as well. But Wise Blood and Elaine Shall Enter First took an awful long time compared to what she would do with her short stories. So that itself was difficult, the longer form. I also think I agree with Virginia Ray that she was trying to do a lot more with race, be a lot more open with it, consider that more deeply. And in her position as a Southern woman, that was a little more difficult for her to know how to respond to that. And so I think she wanted to be more progressive in her views and be more even-handed, but she was also working against a society that maybe wouldn't have been on board as much with that. And so she struggled with that and struggled with her own position, I think, on it. And Virginia Ray does a really wonderful job in her essay, which is an old one, but very interesting, and makes some good connections there, and the influence of Mariette Lee, for example, on that. Another thing that I think, at least, that she was trying to do is maybe for the first time suggest that a romantic relationship, which she had not done a lot of. I mean, there's Parker's Back. They're married there. And there's a courtship, so to speak, there. And of course, that was produced at the same time or soon following the time that she was working on Heathen, and used some of that material in that work. That's actually one of my favorite stories by her. But it's pretty rare to find even married people in her works. Most of the time, if they've been married, one's dead, they're divorced or something like that. So it's popular with very few married people, and certainly not to show the courtship very much. And so I think that was kind of inevitable, because he said in her manuscript, she said he had realized that he loved her, and so you knew that was going to develop, and so trying to develop in some ways. Another thing that I think was going to be new with her is, and a lot of people have suggested this, and Hooten Wilson does also, that she was starting, instead of ending the story with a salvation or a grace moment, she wanted to start with that and see what happens after that moment. How does someone progress? How do they grow? What does that relationship with Christ look like? And she had never really done that. And in the manuscript, she has that conversion experience pretty early on. So I think that was something she was trying to think through. And like I said, she'd not done that. So that was difficult for her to think how that would progress. And then possibly, maybe another rarity for her is to have a Catholic protagonist. You can correct me on this if I'm wrong, Bruce, but the only two stories I could think of with featured Catholics prominently would be Temple of the Holy Ghost and Displaced Person. Am I right? Where the protagonist is Catholic. So it doesn't explicitly say that he was, going to be Catholic. His family is not Catholic, for example, but the way he's described and the monk-like structures that he works within and tonsured hair and that kind of thing makes, and the reading that he does, the Catholic reading he does, makes me wonder if she was going to go that route and work with that a little bit more. And we all know, and Hooten Wilson makes some point of this too, of saying that she was kind of frustrated by her inability to move out of a singular track. I think we can all recognize certain patterns in her plots from her short stories. And she said, she called that what she did well, and she does, but she wanted to do something different. And I was frustrated that she was not able to really get out of that. And so, whenever you're trying to do something new, I think that's just intimidating and difficult for that. So those are the things I think she was trying to do new, and that would have been responsible for the fact that she didn't get much done with it. But I do really I think there's a good start there. I don't think we'll ever see any more than that, of course, but it just would have been interesting to see how that turned out and what she would do with that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Thomas F. Haddox, who is Lindsay Young Professor of English at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where he teaches courses in American literature, religion and literature, and the history and theory of the novel. He's the author of 2 books. The first one, Fears and Fascinations, Representing Catholicism in the American South. And the second book is Hard Sayings, The Rhetoric of Christian Orthodoxy in Late Modern Literature. And he's the co-editor with Alan Dunn of a third, The Limits of Literary Historicism. He is currently at work on a monograph with the working title Toward a Narrative Theory of Grace. His article, Flannery O'Connor Against Bare Life, appears in the current issue of the Flannery O'Connor Review, and he was just here last year for the NEH Summer Institute, and that was the lecture turned article. Take it away, Thomas.
Thank you, Bruce. So I was really fascinated when I heard that Jessica Hooten Wilson was bringing this volume forth, partly because some years ago I had been to Milledgeville and had looked at these manuscripts myself, and my overall impression of them was there's no way that this could be made into a complete novel. One always wonders when one hears about such finds, can it be done? I had looked at it and concluded in this case, no, it can't be done. There are certainly interesting things in the files, and I think that it is fascinating and up to a point probably inevitable that one would speculate, what would O'Connor have done if she had chosen to finish it? But I was very much struck by the fact that we're talking so much about guesswork that it seemed to me at the time it would be very hard to imagine an audience for this if someone were to try to publish the manuscripts in any form. So when I heard that Hooten Wilson was doing this, I guess the first things that came to my mind is what is the motive behind it? Why try to assemble this as a book? And who exactly is the intended audience for it? Those were the questions that got me thinking immediately. If you read her introductory passages, Hooten Wilson says very early on, yes, indeed, this is not a finished novel. It's unfortunate, but there's no way we're ever going to have that. She also says, though, I don't want this to become a scholarly artifact. In other words, this is not something that she had wanted to be pored over merely by people who are already experts in O'Connor. She wanted to make this the occasion of introducing O'Connor's work to a wider audience. I think the fact that it ended up coming out with Brazos Press is probably a sign of that motive. Brazos has an affiliation with Baylor, but it is not Baylor University Press. It is trying to reach a somewhat more general audience. And so I think that the motive is evident even in that particular choice. So putting those two things together, I thought, well, I think that she's not going to succeed. I think that if you are encountering this book at all, it's likely because you already know something about O'Connor. You know, for example, that she was a committed Catholic. You know that there is a vast debate going on about how much that should matter in the way we read her and about how successfully she achieved her intentions in her completed novels and short stories. And so it seemed to me that at the end, unfortunately, perhaps this book is a scholarly artifact. It's convenient. It's convenient for those of us who are O'Connor scholars who may want to dip into this material. It seems like a wonderful thing to read prior to a trip to Milledgeville to go into still more detail about this. But I found myself a little puzzled as to the overall effect. And so I thought there's got to be more to it than just this. And so what I'm going to say now is very, very speculative, but it basically boils down to the fact that what comes through to me most clearly in this book, in the sections between the fragments from the files that Hooten Wilson has assembled, is there is a desire for immediacy. She talks about how it has bothered her that Flannery's characters seem more real to her than Flannery herself. She imagines things such as scenes of O'Connor at work at Andalusia and sniping with Regina and with Louise Hill. There's a funny passage in which she has Flannery tell Louise Hill, "My mornings are non-negotiable." I can't imagine Flannery saying that to anyone, and especially perhaps not to Louise Hill. But it seemed to me that this is something that comes through most clearly. I think that there's a desire behind this volume to achieve a greater sense of immediacy with O'Connor, the person. And I think that this is motivated, frankly, by the fact that there are all kinds of things about O'Connor that we cannot know. We don't know how her attitude toward the civil rights movement might have changed had she lived longer. We don't know how the effects of Vatican II in the Catholic Church might or might not have affected her. I myself have guesses about some of these things, but that's all they are. They're guesses. And some of them are fairly confident. Some of them are much more hesitant. So it seems to me that what we see here is an attempt to substitute for the fiction, which in this case, as everyone agrees, is unfinished, nowhere near in keeping with O'Connor's best work, for something that the fiction can't provide us, a sort of intimacy even with O'Connor herself that is just not accessible. And so I've given this talk as a paper at a conference before, and I end by saying that Hooten Wilson is probably following in the footsteps of Kenneth Burke, who is a great rhetorical critic of literature. He has a wonderful essay called Literature as Equipment for Living. I think that is what is going on in this book. There's a desire to know O'Connor, the person, more deeply, to approach her through what remains that is not widely available to people, and then to use that in the service of Hooten Wilson's own desires. I think that we all do this. I think that there's nothing necessarily wrong with the attempt to do it, but it strikes me as something that I would not want to do myself. It seems it seems as if I cannot get past the fact that there's just too much we don't know, too much that we can't know. I agree very much with what Colleen said earlier about how O'Connor, at a certain point in her life, was trying new things. She definitely was thinking perhaps in a different way about race. And I think she tried to take to heart J.F. Powers' famous advice to her that she stop killing off her characters. Let us see what it looks like for them to live after their encounters with Grace. I think that in a way that's what she succeeded in doing when she wrote Revelation and Parker's Back. I think that she chose to complete those stories instead of this book. And I guess I'll stop there. Probably gone on too long anyway.
Wow. Okay. So we need about 500 questions for our two speakers from from the audience, and I suppose the way we should proceed, we didn't talk about how we're going to do the Q&A. I guess that you can wave your hand or do that thing that Zoom allows to put a hand in your box, or you could type something out in the in the chat feature, and I should be able to notice that it's
I
there.
can watch the
Oh,
chat for you, Bruce, if you want to moderate.
Okay, I see that there's the chat function is up there.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. Do you think that other people are going to take a stab at doing something with these manuscripts? I would think it's inevitable. That this book will be the first in a series of scholarly artifacts. I totally agree. That's where the interest is going to be. There's nothing wrong with being a scholar. There's nothing wrong with producing scholarly artifacts. And that this will be another set of data for people to have different takes on. And the fact that we don't have Flannery finishing it and polishing it and telling us over and over in 500 letters and essays what it means might just be a breath of fresh air for O'Connor studies. Okay, she probably didn't want it published, but she didn't burn the manuscript either, so she may have set us up for some of what we're doing tonight and in the future. And I don't remember, I didn't hear the announcement. Maybe you said it, Katie. The last I heard, Jessica is coming to town in February out at
Oh yeah, I should mention that Jessica will be here in the spring at Georgia College, and that would be,
I think I looked it up. Where did
I'll
I?
put it in the chat.
February.
February 20th
Yeah.
at Andalusia Farm. She'll be doing a book signing, so we can ask her.
Yeah. And they keep running out of copies of the book at Andalusia gift shop. So, somebody's buying it. But I fully expect when I do my book club later this month that I'm going to be telling people about what's in the book, that most people will not have gotten their hands on it, and we'll just be showing up to find out what the fuss is about. Okay, so
Question.
Catherine Laborde says she has a question. Hey, unmute yourself, Catherine. Where are you? I can't
Hello, I'm
There you
here.
are, Catherine.
I'm here. Hello. Y'all did okay with the storm, right? That's what I heard.
Nothing happened to us. Only people around us were flooded. It's quite odd. I was
Well,
out of the country, and I was very glad I had a house sitter who could say, "Oh, nothing happened." Your power went out, but that happens every week. A wire falls off a pole in Milledgeville, the power goes out, but nothing.
I was
And-
supposed to have, well, something did happen. I had to cancel my reading. I had a reading at Andalusia that night on that Thursday, but it's been rescheduled for November, the Thursday after the election. So I'll be there. Hopefully I will be there for that. But that's not my question. That's not even a question. Here's my question, or maybe it's actually a confession. Okay. So Thomas, you were talking about how, you were thinking that perhaps, Jessica was trying to feel closer to Flannery, and that she felt closer to her O'Connor's fictional characters than to Flannery herself. And when I was listening to you saying that, and I think I do remember reading that in the book itself, am I the only one here who feels like I have a connection with Flannery? I feel like there's
I
so
would more to
much.
her than to her characters actually myself. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
disagree with Hooten Wilson on that.
Yeah, I feel such a, and maybe it's because I've read a lot of her unpublished letters when I was working on my book. And you know, and you when you delve into someone's life, you feel like you know, and I can't say I know everything. I mean, God knows, but I definitely feel a connection to her, which in the preface of my book, I even talk about being at times feeling like I was in the room with Flannery herself, and sort of feeling like what she might have been going through at such a moment. And I could feel like this connection to what she was probably feeling or what she could have felt. I mean, I don't say I'm reading her mind and I know, I mean, who could know? But I was just kind of surprised by that, by not feeling, especially after reading like Habit of Being. And so many of us just read Habit of Being over and over again. I feel close to her because of those letters. Those letters have really, at least to me, really opened up a soul to me, that I really enjoy so much of her commentary, definitely her humor. And so I was just wondering, am I alone? Am I the only nutty person who feels like I feel a connection to O'Connor? That's my question.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe it depends on what we mean by connection. I mean, I love reading O'Connor's letters. I think I have a fairly good sense of who she was as a person, what she thought. I definitely would have liked to know her if that had been possible, if I had been alive at the time. Does all of that add up to a connection in the sense that I think you are talking about? I'm not sure. One of the things that was also in my mind when I was working on this is I just read an interesting book by Anna Kornblue called Immediacy. It's a very angry book, and I don't agree with everything that she says in it, but she makes an interesting point about literary and pop culture right now and I think she's onto something here. I think that she is suspicious of the ways that so many works of art, so many practices that we're seeing right now are trying to cultivate a sense of immediacy. Don't step back and from a certain distance and analyze it. Be immersed in the flow of it right away. Make the way it feels, even sometimes, you know, when we're talking literally about the sensations in your body, let that be what is most important instead of the instead of bringing to bear a sort of critical frame of mind. This rings true to me. I certainly see this in my students sometimes, and I'm probably being a little bit unfair if I am attributing too much of that to Hooten Wilson. But I do think that there is some sort of slight connection there. I don't desire a deeper connection with O'Connor, and in fact, I personally would feel a little bit suspicious of getting too close. But maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's yeah.
We had another question. in
Yeah,
the
Heidi
chat.
has a question.
Heidi, yeah. Do you want to ask your question or you want me to ask it?
Sure, I can ask it. So Bruce, you mentioned that perhaps she didn't necessarily want this read, but I was just curious. I mean, she did choose to have it be published in Esquire. That to me seems a departure. She normally, you know, really wanted to have things perfected before she put things out there. And so just curious if there were any thoughts on that choice that she made to have it published there. Again, probably could have been some monetary benefit as well, but I just think that's quite a departure. And so just curious about that.
Wasn't that part of I don't know if it's called a series or not, but they were trying to publish a lot of works in progress by different authors, and it occurred to me that maybe she just wanted to let people know that she's still actively writing, you know, that she wanted to know that she had something out there, and that, you know, keep your eyes open, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a you know, way to advertise something that, you know, she hoped would motivate her maybe to get it done faster, or to at least let people know she's still there, you know, possibly.
I can say that the pages in Esquire have almost nothing to do with the rest of that manuscript, and it's, I can't imagine what she was thinking, saying, oh, this is the part to pull out of what I've written, and I'm going to get published in Esquire finally, which I guess she had always wanted to do. Why pick that? There are other more interesting parts of this manuscript than
What would you have chosen?
those pages.
That's better.
Oh, something about Walter and Una. No, that part where he's you know, doing this weird, aggressive, mean flirtation thing, and through correspondence, you know, written by somebody whose relationships were a matter of writing letters. That's
Sure.
that's really a fascinating part of the book, part of the manuscripts, which I've been away from long enough so that I feel like I know that there's a short story here, you know, that it doesn't seem like just a bunch of fragments, but that's probably because I've made up the rest of what I want to be there, and I've probably, you know, gone down that trail.
She spends a whole lot more time developing Walter, you know, and I'm trying to think as you were talking, if there's any part that you could be a standalone piece, or, you know, or some semblance of a short story. And to me, what you mentioned is the funniest part, the letters, you know, and the kind of way he comments on them, and you know, and pretending that he's a black man and taking pictures, and that's the most humorous part. So and it's the most fleshed out. She spends way more time on Walter than she does on Una. And they're so separate. There's no connection at all between them. And that's interesting too. I don't know if she was going to do a side-by-side thing, like here's Walter, and then the next chapter is Una, and they get closer together, you know, through the novel, so that they'd meet, you know, in that red sports car rolling down the dusty road, you know,
up in the driveway.
Yeah.
Well, if I ask myself, why didn't she finish it? Why'd she give it up? That what you're talking about would be my answer, that she has these two interesting characters and she wants them to connect, and she can't bring herself to believe that it's really possible. And so, you know, the last page that I see is she's pulling up in the driveway and all hell is going to break loose. And
hard scene to
why write it? You know,
Yeah.
everybody is going to be mad at everybody else, and nobody's going to know what's going on. And I don't know, Walter is going to have to run away from home and give up trying to learn how to be a farmer, and it's bizarre, chaotic, and also predictable. And so, you know, give it up already. It would have been nice to see what in the world she was going to do with the race theme in here, you know, because I wanted to read it as progressive, but she gave it up.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, you know, when you stop writing, what's that mean about your manuscript? And yeah, I'm talking too much. It just begs for us to speculate. And I went for 20 years without looking at these manuscripts at all. And I think it may have been, you know, the interview that you wrote up, that article where you were interviewing Jessica, and you said, okay, this is going to happen. She's going to turn this into a novel. And whenever I had spoken to anybody who had looked at these manuscripts, what I got was there's no there. It doesn't go together. It's the same scene written over and over and over. And well, okay, that is true. That you know, you sit down with those manuscripts and you read the same scene over and over and over and over and over. And why did Flannery think she wasn't getting it right? Move on, darling. And she doesn't. So it's like you're just watching somebody have writer's block. But then you keep reading you keep reading manuscripts and you go look at files. I believe this. You go look at files that are labeled as being about something other than Why Did the Heathen Rage, that relate to Why Did the Heathen Rage, and you begin to get a sense of how this could imagine how this could fit together. On the other hand, you know, if I tell somebody, come to Milledgeville and read the 300 and something pages of manuscript, and somebody actually does it on the basis of my recommendation, I expect to get slapped. I expect them to say, well, that was really boring. And, you know, reading the same thing over and over and over and over and over and watching somebody not get anywhere. But, but there was this little passage here that was really, you know, intriguing, and it might have gone from here to here. And so I'm not going to recruit anybody to come read all these manuscripts, but I think that it would be nice if we had more scholarly artifacts about these manuscripts that try to make as much sense of what it might have been as possible, with maybe wildly varying opinions about where this could have gone and where Flannery O'Connor was in those late years. You know, I think that would be a kind of interesting, creative direction for scholarship to take. You know, let the creative writers have at it, and you know, label honestly that that's what they're doing. But you know, I don't see any harm in it. And you know, we're not going to do any disservice to the parts of O'Connor that she's famous for by allowing and encouraging these speculations. We'll admit every 30 seconds that we're just playing and we're speculating. And of course, we have no right to do this if we haven't read everything else by Flannery O'Connor multiple times before we start playing these parlor games. Okay, shut me up. Jessica, you have a question. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for the presentations. I don't remember, but I'm thinking back to the book of letters between Carolyn Gordon and Flannery that Christine Flanagan put together. Are there letters from back and forth with Carolyn Gordon about this novel? I don't recall.
Don't either.
I don't remember anything. I don't think that far enough.
Yeah, because I'm curious. I'm thinking about, and I still have to, you know, get through Jessica's book, sort of in the pages there. But I'm curious what future books iterations might look like. Would it be something, you know, when Christine does her presentations and she says she sort of takes some of these letters and use them in undergrad classrooms to sort of show the writing process, could, you know, would a book like that be useful? So this one scene, maybe over and over again, it's really boring, could those scenes be formatted to show the revision process?
I would be interested to see what Christine would do with this in the classroom, because she does use manuscripts and the revision process that O'Connor went through to make students try it themselves. And sounds like it would work. Not for me, but you know, but for Christine, I think it does. Yeah. Keep going. What else, folks?
See, Matt has a question.
Matt.
Hey everybody.
I do. It's Ralph Floyd.
How's everybody doing? Sorry, I look like I'm hiding in some basement somewhere, but
No, that's me. I'm the one hiding in the basement.
I wasn't
Bruce,
going to say that, Bruce, but you went ahead and said that, so I'm not going to disagree with you. So thanks to Katie for reminding me about this. This is a really great conversation, and appreciate Colleen's article on this manuscript, which really helped me understand it several years ago, and Tom's presentation at our roundtable this summer at Sizzle, SSSL. But so my question is, and Bruce, you were kind of getting at this with, you know, your remarks a moment ago, but the thing I'm really wrestling with is, as a scholar, you know, do you all feel like it makes sense to actually quote from and use this version of Why Did the Heathen Rage, like as a, you know, do close reading of it? Or, you know, are there values, is there a value to engaging with the content in Jessica's book in a scholarly way? Or is the sort of, you know, concern around the handling of the manuscript and kind of the lack of transparency of kind of how that went, do you think that that kind of makes that a spurious enterprise? Maybe that's stating it a little bit too harshly, but I've heard some people say pretty much that about it. And my second question, this is a little bit of a smuggle, but my second question, I spent a lot of time last summer looking at the Violent Bear It Away manuscript. And of course, Jessica ends her book with the cross-burning scene that O'Connor rewrote over 20 times, I think, in her manuscripts that ended up not being in the Violent Bear It Away. And Jessica chose to end her book with that scene. And I wondered if y'all could comment maybe on those two things. What do y'all think about that decision to borrow a section from the Violent Bear It Away manuscript in this book, which is kind of an interesting artifact to bring in front of the people, especially these days? And then what do y'all think about engaging with it just in close reading, not having some of this transparency about the way the manuscript was handled? Does that make sense as a two-part? Thank y'all.
I guess my feeling about this would be, I mean, first of all, there's, you seem to be suggesting, what about the ethics of doing this? Since O'Connor did not present these manuscripts to us in the form that have been assembled for us here, is there something wrong about doing it at all? As opposed to, I suppose, you know, quoting directly from the file number in Andalusia. If I understood you right, that's sort of what you were getting at there. I guess I do not feel strongly about that either way. It's published now. It's not violating copyright law under the fair use to quote from it. I think that as long as you are being very careful to note this is Hooten Wilson's version of this and not necessarily O'Connor's, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. Whether it ought to be done more generally, and here I guess I'm coming to your question about the cross-burning scene. I want to learn something about O'Connor that I didn't know before. I want to have my sense of who she is as a writer challenged or deepened. And I have to say that one of the things that I found kind of disappointing about reading this book is I didn't see that. I don't think that my sense of O'Connor as a writer or of what mattered to her has changed very much. And insofar as there are interesting things in it that are suggestive, to go back to Colleen's point about, you know, what was O'Connor trying to do at this time in her life, it's there, but other people have noticed this already. Maybe that's being just sort of unreasonable. But I think it's coming from a place where I really want to be astounded. I really want to be astounded by what I'm reading. I want more than, as you were putting it, Bruce, something to do parlor games with. It's not that I have anything against parlor games. It's just that
I think to me, two interesting things you could do with this. One is the insight that it gives you into other published completed stories like Parker's Back or The Enduring Chill. She was thinking about using this as kind of an extension of Enduring Chill and making him the main character. And for a while in the manuscript, she flip-flops between using the name Walter and Asbury, and that's how we know that. So that, I think, is insightful, and how she shifted it in, let's say, Parker's Back, you know, from But you can see, and if you're familiar with Parker's Beck, you can see some the elements of Parker in the man that has the tattoos in that manuscript, and just to do some comparison and see what she's done with the characters and what she has used, because to me that's the huge blessing that she did that, that she didn't just say, well, that doesn't work, but she tried it, I think desperately towards the end to try to put some of it into something else. And to me, Parker's Beck is it's my favorite work by her, and it's wonderfully done. And another thing, and this would not be in the form that Hooten Wilson put it, but the benefit of the manuscripts to me is to see the process. And why did she make that choice? Why did she change this to this? Why did she, go back? And it seemed like such a small thing, but why was that important that she did this to this, So, and you're missing that, of course, with Hooten Wilson's version, and understandably so. So I think that this, if nothing else, will spark more interest in the manuscripts. And getting people to, look at those. And even though I wouldn't use them as, in my composition class, for example, as process in that way, maybe Christine is using them. I just think that would have some interesting critical essays possible there to see, to see her process and why did she make the shifts that she did. So yeah, those to me, those are the biggest benefits of this. And for such a long time, you could only get the gist of it from actually going to Milledgeville and seeing the manuscripts. And this at least opens it up to people thinking, okay, now I know that story, and now it may be more interesting for scholars to come to Milledgeville, or just, like Bruce was suggesting, maybe just people playing with it, and creative writers, and seeing what they could do with it. That'd be fun.
When you
Thank y'all.
When you look at manuscripts, I think the tendency is always to say, okay, these are all the false starts and all the mistakes until we got the final version, which is the perfect one. So that all the manuscripts are, records of failures. When you look at Heathen, that's not a problem, because we don't know if it ever got anywhere it was supposed to go. Everything is just a stab at it. And it might be a better place. I'm not going to do this. It might be a better place to start working on what do you think's going on in the mind of O'Connor as she drafts, the next story, and get, and look at really picky little changes. Gosh, she just rewrites and rewrites and rewrites the littlest things, as if the world depends on changes that I can't see any significance to.
Right.
And I'd love to see somebody else, make it meaningful somehow. And as far as close reading things that we don't have the entirety of, look at what we've been doing with Flannery O'Connor's letters for the last few decades.
Right.
We're still finding boxes of letters in attics. So, hey,
right.
We've been deciding that certain letters are really important and other letters aren't important because we don't have them all. Okay, wait 300 years and we'll have every letter
exactly.
that, Flannery O'Connor ever wrote, and we'll all have memorized them. And then we can start to say something about the letters. No, it hadn't held us back none. We just go right ahead and think we
I
know.
like that idea that is suggested in the chat just now, 13 ways of looking at Heathen. That'd be fun, just have people like a compilation, and
hey,
here's
a scholarly collection.
Yeah, that's fun. That would be fun.
Takes on Heathen. Yeah.
Or creative writing takes on it as
Yeah.
To O'Connor. Yeah. Well, that issue of Shenandoah a few years ago was kind of like that. It was mostly creative writing, people jumping off from O'Connor, and I thought it was a very fun book to read. And why shouldn't we encourage people to try to figure out what would make this into a good story or a good novel? Where might Flannery have gone with this? How could she have gotten out of the corner she painted herself into? I don't know. I don't see any harm to O'Connor.
Yeah.
We're not
I guess
O'Connor. She's going to do fine no matter what.
Yeah. I guess I think with this, I appreciate the responses. The thing that I've just noticed in the response to the book that I found fascinating, and I've turned my camera off because my phone's moving a lot because my dog won't leave me alone. So sorry about that. But when I've read reviews or I've read attended talks on it and things like that, there's not as much, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad or a good thing. It's something I'm reflecting on. There's not a lot of direct engagement with the text itself, right? A lot of it is about manuscript handling and about the overall concept of it and that. And so I don't know, I just think it's kind of fascinating. I mean, there are lots of examples of this in literary history. I think of like Juneteenth by Ellison or Pale King by David Foster Wallace, a number of other writings. But anyway, yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm. And what else is in the works, that is going to be published someday, that's ready to go as far as Flannery O'Connor was concerned, or not ready to go as far as Flannery O'Connor was concerned? I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of stuff that's going to be published with all sorts of scholarly excuse making and qualification and explanation. Oh, this is just my best attempt to talk about this stuff. And if somebody gets tired of all this stuff, they can always go back and read A Good Man Is Hard to Find and and say, okay, here she is at her best, and think it through again. And we know she wanted that one to be noticed. She wanted people to pay attention to that story. And you can go back and forth to the totally canonical O'Connor. She picked it out for us and said these are the best ones fairly often. Okay, we can go back and forth between the most canonical stuff and the stuff where we're not sure whether we should be reading this. Do you want to give up the prayer journal? Just because she tore out pages and didn't intend for us to be reading that either? I think that's the clearest example of something she never imagined we'd be poring over.
I think I learned something new about her from reading the prayer journal. I don't think I learned much new about her from reading this book.
Yeah, I mean,
What it
there's
comes back for me.
great. Yeah, I wonder if I've thought about this a lot with archives and, the kind of, because here at Georgia College, we have archives, and how do you make the determination of what's important and significant and what isn't? And so, for example, just sort of like we had a show of miniatures, little figurines. I don't know if I think it takes scholars to engage with the stuff to tell us whether it's meaningful or, for instance, people were pulling out boxes of stuff like her pajamas. And I thought to myself, note to self, get rid of all your pajamas if you don't want people talking about them. I mean, it's just sort of like, I don't think O'Connor would want us to look at.
We have a collection of Flannery O'Connor's dress shields, that she perspired and on them. And, I remember being in a conversation one time with somebody who said, I want to pay to have the DNA test done on these.
It's like a holy relic or something.
Yeah.
No
for dress
limit
pants.
to what somebody's
Yeah.
gonna do.
Some
So
of it is
sure,
who
I'll
decided that was important and donated it and preserved all these years, and what stuff was deemed unimportant and we don't know about it, or got, it's just such an interesting conversation, I think. And this book might lend us to have that start some of that conversation.
Yeah. Right. And the Klein house was full of more family stuff. They're still opening drawers out at the farm apparently, and finding more things, and questions must be asked about what right do we have to be looking at this stuff.
Right.
And, you know, what's this got to do with reading a short story? And you know, I find I have a very high tolerance for listening to other people speculate about things that I don't want to get involved in.
Yeah.
But I
think
haven't seen anybody who's gone too far yet with this stuff. You know.
I think it goes back to what I said about the desire for immediacy. I mean, the examples I'm seeing in the chat, bags of hair, her gallstone. I mean, we want to be that intimate with O'Connor. Maybe you do. I don't.
Oh, I'm just spying. You know, I don't think, you know, there's a connection. I feel very distant from O'Connor in lots of ways. I'm sure that she, like the rest of her family, would disapprove. And that keeps me away from certain things.
Can I say something about the gallstone?
Hey, talk about the gallstone. We've gotten there. Let's have it. Okay.
I was there. It was at Emory, and that was like one of the things in one of the boxes. And I thought, oh, I don't need to see that. And then I forgot about it because I was looking through his medical stuff, and I was looking, you know, records of, you know, when she was taking this, that, and the other, whatever, and just pouring through just to see if there's anything that I could use about New York. So then I get to this bag, and it's rattle, rattle, rattle. I'm like, I totally forgot. And then I opened it up and I saw this weird little thing. I was like, oh my God, it's a damn gallstone. I did not want to see it, but the gallstone wanted me to see it. It was so, I mean, I thought it was really funny because I didn't want to see it. But I mean, the fact that we have kept this, that we have, well, she kept it. And then they, you know, Emory purchased it. And so I have to agree. I mean, you know, I think it's a little bizarre. So who knows why someone would want to see that. But I just wanted to say that it was thrust upon me. I did not want to see it. And there it was.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation came up at the conference because Karen Gravel showed images of the inside of the Klein house as we received it, right? And for those of you who don't know, we received that house in July. And many of the rooms are full of stuff, including O'Connor's room, where she was in high school and college. And some of it feels staged almost. There's a desk with rosaries, gloves, a children's book with her signature, but then there's piles of trash, you know, it's just, there's dresses that are in dry cleaning bags from the 50s that are just, it's almost eerie. It's like a time capsule. And so this question is really live for us, I think, is how do we deal with this giant mansion full of stuff that was given? You know, who's in charge and who makes the decision? Because there was someone had a key and they sold a bunch of this stuff at a yard sale. And I freaked out when I heard about that, and I didn't get to go over, but my colleague Chika Unigwe went over there and bought a sewing machine that apparently belonged to the family and a bunch of other stuff. So it's just a really interesting question, because on the other hand, there's just so much stuff, you can't really process it. Like, we don't have an army of archivists and paid professionals to just sift through piles like the attic is, but there's really good stuff in there, I can tell you, that would be interesting to scholars. But who's going to decide? Like, there was a pile of trash, I just took pictures of it because I know that as soon as they clean it, paper isn't going to, you know, but there were like farm records up there, things like that, that I think are, there was a treatise on, what was it? A Catholic treatise on politics from the 50s, just put out by the Catholic Church about how to engage with politics, and bullet points and tips to deal with the press. I mean, they had that in their house. I thought that was interesting.
So somebody in the notes, the chat thing said, I guess it was Matt, what did they think of the illustrations of the book? I just wanted to comment. I thought that was a nice ad. I wasn't expecting that because most scholarly books don't have anything at all except maybe some photographs or something. So that he did those for the book was really impressive. And I read the section where he kind of explained, the interpretation of it in the back, and that was really, really cool. He pointed out things that I'd missed in it, and he kind of has a feel for her kind of symbolism, and I think incorporated those well into the woodcuts. So I like that. That was nice. Plus, the baptism scene is my favorite one, but that's right with her chapter called The Baptism, but very nicely done.
He did with the manuscript material was different from what Jessica was doing with the
Yeah.
manuscript material.
Mhm.
And that wasn't to me, that's not a problem. Hey, okay, we're starting to have different takes.
Yeah.
On what's here. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, we are going to continue to talk about this on other days, and it's 8 o'clock. I think it's time for us to declare victory and move on, and we'll chew on these manuscripts some more on what's the date?
October
20th.
17th.
October 17th. I got to get busy rereading this book and finding out how much I've forgotten about what's in here.
Come back and discuss it with us on the 17th if you'd like, if you have a chance to read it.
And then feel free to come confront Jessica in February when she's out at Andalusia, signing copies, ready to answer questions that anybody has about anything. Yeah.
I also just want to mention March is the birthday, the centennial, and we're planning, we just had another meeting today, a very big gala event, week-long event with music and film and speakers. So look out for that. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for our speakers and Bruce, as always.
Thank you.
Yes.
For having us.
Ta-ta.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a
Good to
good
see
night.
everybody.
Yes, I have Fernanda.